Hey, my spookies. Welcome back to the Ides of March, when the month feels like it's leaning in close, smiling politely to your face while it hides a knife behind its back. Tonight we start where you're supposed to be safe. Bright halls, familiar routines, a world that feels normal. But sometimes the lesson plan changes. A shadow slips into the room, a whisper turns into a summons, and something old and hungry remembers your name like it's been waiting on the roll sheet for years. Then comes the promise of a new beginning, clean slate, fresh start, protection. But the Ides of March love a fresh start, because it gives fate something soft to grab. Not everything that offers help is doing it out of kindness, and some guardians come with fire in their veins and a price that you won't like. And by the time we reach the end, we're out in the wild places where grudges don't die, but they do hibernate, where revenge carries old weapons, returns on schedule, and doesn't care if you've changed. So, settle in, get those lights low, and if you hear something scratching at the door, well, just remember, sometimes it's not trying to get in. Sometimes it's just trying to let you know it's arrived. And be sure to return next Saturday for our final installment of the Ides of March, featuring the scariest stories from the WeeklySpooky Vault. And every Wednesday there's a brand new scary story to enjoy. So make sure you're subscribed, and let's get this show on the road.
Academia Demonia by David O'Hanlon. August 1925. He crept along the side of the farmhouse, sticking to the shadows as he pushed the shotgun shells into his Winchester 1897. Honeysuckle drifted on the night breeze. He pinched his nose, trying to fight the urge to sneeze. The man rarely strayed from the grimy comfort of the Chicago streets. Out in the Illinois boondocks, his allergies were giving him fits, and the goddamn mosquitoes loved his aftershave more than the whores on State Street. He couldn't wait to be back home, and it wouldn't be much longer. Just 8 pulls of the trigger. Once the sneeze passed, the man continued his slow stalk to the back porch. Something sat sourly in his stomach. Vincenzo Rizzoli was paying a premium for a job that anyone could do. One nosy accountant, his family, and a 4-man contingent of state police. Rizzoli could have hired a half-dozen zips for what he was paying for the shotgun man. The man killed exclusively with his Winchester shotgun, so that was the moniker he'd been given. Gangsters were terrible at names. Admittedly, he liked the simplicity of the title and the anonymity it provided. Guys like Riz worried too much about their names. They wanted people to know who they were. They wanted to be feared. But the man knew fear didn't have a name. It had a sound. He racked the pump and kicked the back door. One of the coppers tried to earn his paycheck and capped off 2 rounds into the broken jam. The shotgun man, he returned fire, turning the gunfighter's face into a part of the decor. He had perfected his craft in the trenches. He kept the trigger depressed and worked the pump to slam fire the weapon. In less than 3 seconds, The shotgun was empty, and all the cops were down. 3 were dead, and 1 was catching up. The shotgun man pulled a shell from his bandolier and loaded it straight into the smoking chamber. He listened to the soothing death rattle of the one he'd caught in the chest. During the war, the Germans had claimed shotguns caused unnecessary suffering. Seemed more like a perk to him. Feet stomped frantically overhead as the family upstairs looked for places to hide. He wondered if they'd split up. A witness with a clear description would kill him as dead as a cop with a gun could. The accountant had brought his wife and 2 kids to the safe house. The shotgun man hated shooting kids. They moved too much. 3 hours later, the shotgun man stood over the shallow grave he'd prepared on the opposite side of the farm. He'd moved the 8 victims from the farmhouse before setting it ablaze. Authorities would find no remains in the ashes, and if there were no bodies, then there were no murders. The shotgun man struck a match with his thumb and puffed a Lucky to life between his thin lips. He held the match inside the stolen Ford. "There you are." He grabbed the boy's arm and tossed it into the pit with the rest of the child. He started the grueling task of filling the hole back in when headlights turned onto the gravel road. He watched the 3 pairs of lights jostling on the rough terrain. He dropped the shovel and retrieved his shotgun. The motors were too loud to be the Oldsmobile 37s the state police used, but any guest was an unwelcomed one at a crime scene. A pair of Buicks arrived first, flanking both ends of the shotgun man's Model T. He couldn't see the drivers, but he knew exactly who they were when the 3rd car pulled in. A parade of flaming elephants would have been less conspicuous than Rizzoli's Rolls-Royce Phantom. The shotgun man watched as the Goombas unloaded from their cars. A gut feeling told the shotgun man he should be shooting already. The Phantom's door swung open, and the gangsters stepped out, giving a wave to the assassin. "Got 'em all, Pally?" Riz asked. "Of course you fucking did. You mooks see that pit? The shotgun man always comes through. That's why he's gotta go." Rizzo whipped the Tommy gun from behind the door. The shotgun man never had a chance to move. The bullets stitched him up from groin to gullet, sending him into a backwards jig until he fell on top of the night's other victims. Riz had betrayed him, paying him off with 30 pieces of lead. He could smell his gums cooking against the hot slug buried in his jaw. He was losing feeling in his limbs. He struggled to wrap his fingers around the walnut grip of the shotgun. He wanted that to be the last thing he felt. A shovel full of dirt hit him in the face. Then another. He squeezed the shotgun tight in his dying grasp and prayed for revenge. Someone was listening. 100 years later, Michelle Iommi and Dia Patel passed the vape pen between themselves in a butterscotch-scented cloud that seemed to hang indefinitely over the picnic table the 4 cheerleaders had commandeered for their free period. Shari Riley watched Ethan Crow carving into another table on the far side of the yard. "What is he even doing here?" she growled. "We running short on Rusties?" Rusties were the people who lived south of the town's junkyard. During the Great Depression, children from the area would bathe in the creek, and the water would stain their skin with the rust that washed down from the yard. Almost a century later, the pejorative was still going strong. Then again, so was the poverty. "School choice law," Dia told her. "Address doesn't matter anymore." "Well, it shouldn't apply to him," Shari defended her stance. "He's always given me the creeps." "Not the only one." Chelsea Rizzoli pointed to the far end of the school. "That perv's been hanging around since I got off the bus." "What perv?" Michelle looked around. "I don't see anyone." "That guy right..." "Shit. He was right there." Chelsea shrugged. "He's been watching us for like an hour. Maybe he finally filled his spank bank." "You mean that weird guy in the hat?" Dia asked. "You saw him too?" Chelsea took the vape from her. "Right before I came out," Dia said. "He was hanging by the library. What kind of freak wears a trench coat? Dude gave me the serious ick." "He was right there, though," Chelsea said. "You couldn't have seen him inside." "I did," Dia squirmed. "What if there's like a group of them, like one of those pedo pizza cults?" "Don't be stupid," Shari rolled her eyes. "This town is full of degenerates, like... Hey, where'd Ethan go?" Don Roberts kept his eyes on the map as he navigated half-heartedly to his classroom. He'd grown up wanting to be a teacher. After 30 years working in Chicago public schools, he just wanted to retire. This was his first year at LHHS. It was a smaller school with less problems, but kids were kids everywhere you went, and kids were always little shits. His first year teaching, he'd been stabbed by a student. His last, he'd been turned into a meme. Both had cut him deeply. Thankfully, he didn't have a class scheduled until second period, so he'd be able to get in a nip of Jameson before the little bastards rolled in. If he ever found the damn classroom. Roberts jumped at a shadow on the wall. The black shade of the long coat and the hipster cap were distinctive on the mint green paint. His eyes traced the sketched form back to an adjoining hall. The teacher took careful steps so that he could get a good jump out of the truant student. He paused at the corner and tried to wipe off the shit-eating grin. "Hey, kid!" he shouted as he swung into the corridor. "What the heck? Where'd you go, kid?" No one was there. No footsteps had retreated across the speckled flooring, yet the closest place to hide were the bathrooms at the far end. Windows lined one side of the hall, and Roberts glanced uncomfortably at his squat shadow directly opposite them. Despite the August sunlight spilling in, he found himself shivering. Roberts beat a quick path to the restroom. "Okay, kid, time to get back to class." No one answered. Roberts walked into the men's room and heard the rattle of feet pulling up onto a seat. The teacher pushed the door. It swung inward, bumping against the teen's knee. The kid took out one earbud and held his hand out expectantly. "You here to help me wipe?" he asked. "Pinch it off," Roberts nodded to the exit. "You're missing class." "I'm not missing a goddamn thing," the kid responded. "Kid. Ethan," the teen corrected him. "Okay, Ethan, you need to get back to class now." "Or what?" Ethan snickered. "You'll expel me from the place I don't want to be for not being here?" Bit early in the year to be this defeatist. "Bruh, I got 46 days until I turn 18. Ethan put his earbud back in. "You and the rest of the faculty can ignore me that long. Then I'll get out of your hair. All 4 you got left." "That'll be enough." Roberts grabbed the teen's arm. "Let's go see Ms. Wardlow." "Ease back, Kevin Spacey." He shouldered into Roberts to knock him away. "You can't touch me. This ain't 1984. "Then act your age and walk yourself. Why don't you suck these balls of academia, Pops?" Roberts snapped a finger at the door. "Now!" The lights flickered, drawing the teacher's attention long enough for Ethan to run for the exit. The bell rang, swallowing the sound of the door banging into the wall. By the time Roberts got there, the delinquent had melded into the swell of students escaping first period. "I should have stayed in the city," Roberts grumped. Chelsea watched out the third-floor window of her AP history class. The first day of school normally had lots of vacant desks as the teens begrudgingly broke from their summer routines. However, by fourth period, Chelsea was sure something else was going on. Despite 36 desks, only 19 students occupied the classroom. 2 of the missing had just been with her in trig. She wasn't the only one that noticed. No one, including the teacher, seemed particularly interested in the curriculum. A sudden bang drew attention to the back of the room, where Darcy Smith sat. Darcy stared at the book she'd dropped with confusion, but didn't make a move to pick it up. Chelsea turned to the window again and gasped at the silhouette of a man outside. Dia screamed. Darcy was convulsing at her desk. Foam flew from her mouth and her eyes rolled back before she fell to the floor. Most of the students shrank away from the violent seizure, clinging to the walls while pulling out their phones. The teacher slid to the girl's side. "I'll get the nurse," Chelsea said, chancing one last glance around for the specter in the window before darting out of the class.
Shh, it was only the wind. You're safe. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Nurse McBride was occupied with her 6th case of "I don't feel good" for the day. Hunter Prescott made a show of holding his stomach while groaning. McBride poured him a shot of Pepto, but when she turned around, Hunter was missing. The door was still closed, and she hadn't heard it open. She shrugged, downing the pink syrup herself. The first week was always full of whiners looking to go home sick. There were at least 3 waiting outside the office for their chance to try. A warm, wet droplet exploded on McBride's hand. She looked down at the strange, foamy, green-yellow spatter. Yuck! She raised her eyes to the ceiling, assuming it had come from a second-story bathroom. She expected a spreading stain of sewage saturating the overhead tiles. Nothing prepared her for what she found instead. Ethan sat in the janitor's closet. He'd been changing hiding spots every period since his run-in with that new teacher. There were enough problems at home. He needed to come to school just enough to keep the principal from calling the cops. Last time that happened, he walked into a door and spent a week in the hospital. Once he turned 18, he'd drop out and haul ass to Canada. Ethan leaned against the wall and thought about where he'd hide out next. A hiss emanated from the mop sink he sat on. A sulfurous scent wafted up from the drain. He fanned the smell away. The closet door inched open. Ethan prepared to make a run for it, but no one was there. The stench grew stronger with another strange hiss. Someone in the hall whistled a slow tune. He saw their shadow on the wall, but not its owner. Ethan watched the shadow peel itself from the cinder blocks. The darkness stretched away like black sinew holding meat to bone. It snapped audibly as the shadow man moved to the doorway. "We have work to do." The voice coming from the walls themselves growled. The sea snake shot from the drain, twisting its massive body around Ethan. The shade stroked the snake's scales, leaving an oily streak along its length as the serpent forced itself between the teen's teeth. Ethan's throat swelled as the snake descended into his belly. The shadow man leaned over him, dripping shadow onto the boy like it were sweat. Darcy snarled and spat until she abruptly fell still. Miss Kirk leaned over Darcy's mouth to listen for a breath. The forked tongue dry-licked the teacher's ear. Kirk fell backwards. Darcy lifted from the ground, springing upright on the tips of her toes. Her milky eyes moved between the students, then settled on Miss Kirk. Darcy's sneakers squelched on the tile as she glided across the room. "Holy shit!" a classmate exclaimed. "Fuck the nurse! Get a priest!" Darcy waved her hand, sending a desk soaring towards the student and smashing his skull between it and the wall. Darcy's spine broke with a wet crunch as her head continued turning to face her fellow students. "Pestis eram vivus," she growled inhumanly. "Moriens tua mors ero." Nurse McBride stared up at Hunter, clinging to the ceiling. He smiled until his cheeks tore open and his mouth stretched to an impossible width. Luminescent green-yellow vomit showered over the nurse. Her shoes slipped in the chunky fluid. A rash of blisters broke out across her skin. Roaches and worms squirmed in the vomit. McBride screamed for help. Maggots wriggled from Hunter's pores, dropping down onto the nurse. They squirmed vigorously from the weeping blisters and chewed their way into her flesh. Hunter dropped from the ceiling, pinning McBride to the floor. She stared into his ragged, gaping mouth. Eyes shining, like a cat's, stared back at her from deep inside his throat. No wonder his stomach had hurt. Chelsea banged on the door to the robotics lab. Mr. Clark was a total nerd and would surely be able to help with Darcy, she thought. She threw the door open. A number of students were convulsing on the floor. Others were doing the same on the ceiling. Mr. Clark tisked loudly. "This isn't your class, Miss Rizzoli," he said. Chelsea stood frozen, unable to find the words she needed. She shakily pointed at the students. She wanted help. She wanted answers. She wanted to say anything at all, but there weren't any words made for that sort of thing. The teacher turned to her. Clark's hollow eye sockets met her gaze. He was smiling widely, with the organs staring at Chelsea held between his teeth. He bit down, crushing his eyeballs. Ocular fluid spurted across Chelsea's blouse. She ran out of the room. Blood drained out of a locker, causing her to slip, but not fall. At least 3 more lockers were leaking around her. Chelsea thought of the missing students. She pulled her phone from her pocket. The screen flashed and flickered in a pixelated rainbow of colors. She spotted the fire alarm on the wall and darted for it. Her fingers stretched for the white handle. Someone caught her by the wrist. The hand was delicate, but the grip was anything but. Principal Wardlow tossed Chelsea's hand clear of the alarm. "What is the meaning of this?" the prim principal demanded. "I don't smell smoke out here." Something is wrong," Chelsea stammered. "Everyone is... Fuck, I don't know. They're sick, okay? We need help." "Sick?" Wardlow cackled and gestured to the hall. "They look perfectly healthy to me." Chelsea whirled around. The students were filing out of the robotics lab. They crawled along the walls and ceilings like spiders. Mr. Clark stalked out of the room on all fours. Classrooms filled with guttural shouting in an unknown language. People screamed. A locker popped open, spilling the mutilated corpse of a former classmate at Chelsea's feet. "Don't run," the principal said. "This is your party, kiddo." Chelsea damn sure ran. On the 50-yard line, Ethan clawed away chunks of turf from the football field. Nurse McBride, with her face hanging in ragged strips from her skull, crawled onto the field. She sniffed at Ethan and snarled. The teen continued his mad digging. Hunter dropped to his other side. Their hands tore into the earth alongside Ethan's. More students came to their aid. A long shadow fell over them. The silhouette removed its fedora as it watched them work. In 3 hours, the final bell would ring. Buses would arrive. Parents would be waiting outside. The task had to be done before then. That was the deal that had been struck. "What is wrong with my phone?" DL whined. "It's an Android," Michelle answered, taking out her new iPhone. "Fuck!" Her screen was an array of flashing colors. Others had encountered the problem when they tried to film Darcy levitating. That had been scary enough, but Michelle, Cherie, and Dia got the hell out of there when she started ripping off heads. Cherie kept her back to the bathroom door to hold it shut. Dia paced the room. Michelle threw her phone against one of the mirrors and slunk into a stall. "Are you trying to get us killed? We have to stay quiet," Cherie warned. "You saw what Darcy did. We need to call for help." "All the phones are broken," Dia said. "Why is she doing this?" Michelle sobbed. "That bitch was always crazy." Cherie pressed her ear to the door. "I don't hear anything. Maybe we should make a run for it." "We need to shelter in place," Dia protested, "just like the drills." "Bad idea," the guttural voice said from within the walls. Darcy's face, now festering with sores, appeared in the broken mirror. She smiled. Her teeth were stained with blood and black bile. The bathroom door flung open, sliding Cherie across the floor. Darcy floated into the bathroom, dragging her toes. She rolled a severed head like a bowling ball to Dia's feet. "If you want to be popular," Darcy said, "you gotta give a little head." The ceiling tiles collapsed over the three girls, and a cascade of large, hairy spiders showered down onto them. The bathroom door slammed on its own. Darcy's laughter rattled like stones in a blender. Dia stomped at the arachnids. Then the lights went out. Ethan snapped the skeleton's fingers off to free the Winchester shotgun. It felt at home in his hands. He pushed the slide back to see a shell still in the chamber. He stared at the disembodied arm of a child mixed among the grave's many bones. Nurse McBride slipped the bandolier of extra ammunition over Ethan's head and straightened it for him. The fifth period bell rang. Those that hadn't been possessed or killed would be cowering inside, praying for a rescue. The thing inside McBride snarled. It knew all too well what it was like waiting to be saved. They'd smoldered for millennia, spewing unanswered prayers themselves. Hell's darkest soul had become their light. His revenge would be their freedom. Legion would inherit the earth. Chelsea watched through the locker vents as possessed students stalked the hall for survivors. A shrill cry echoed down the corridor. The students paused, growling lowly amongst themselves. Two freshmen sprinted past Chelsea's hiding place. A possessed student drove one to the floor. Others sprang at the teen's flailing limbs. Gunshots echoed through the halls of the school. Chelsea almost screamed. It had to be the cops. Someone's phone had worked, and they'd called for help. That was the only thing that made sense. Not that anything had to during a demonic invasion. Chelsea broke from cover while the possessed were busy ripping their victim apart. There was no shortage of freshmen, anyhow. Chelsea hurdled a skateboard that zipped across her path. The rider, a future dropout named Kyle Long, winked at her from the ceiling. Foamy saliva rolled down his inverted face, etching the flesh to his hairline. Kyle dropped onto the floor. He growled and gnashed his teeth. Complecte abyssum. A snarl emanated from within him. Not that one, a disembodied voice commanded. We have a deal. The others are for you, but this one is mine. Non ducor duco, Kyle's demon replied. The shotgun boomed. Kyle's head flopped to the side, clinging to his body by ravaged muscle. The second shot blasted him down the hallway. Chelsea looked down the hall, expecting a savior. Instead, she saw Ethan Crow racking a fresh shell into his shotgun. The flickering lights cast a long shadow behind him. The shadow of a man in a long coat and fedora. Her knees shook with a primal urge to spring into action. But she held her ground. "Ethan?" she said softly. "You saved me." The barrel shifted in her direction. Chelsea dived to the floor. Kyle's black blood had turned the tile into a slip-and-slide that carried her across the corridor. The shotgun blew chunks out of the floor. Ethan let out an inhuman scream as his prey scrambled to her feet and ran for the stairwell. He drew a shell from the bandolier. The century-old plastic crumbled between his fingers, spilling powder and shot at his feet. He sprinted after her. The teen took the stairs 2 and 3 at a time. Ethan hurriedly loaded 3 rounds into the gun. His first shot reduced a cinder block to dust, inches from his target. Chelsea flung herself over the handrail, falling the last 10 feet to the ground. She heard Ethan land behind her as she scrambled to her feet. Pain shot up her leg, but she forced herself to hobble toward the daylight, spilling through the front entrance. The shotgun butt struck her neck, and she sprawled out onto the floor. The black slit pupils of Ethan's yellow eyes gazed down on her. Venomous saliva rolled off his teeth, trickling onto his bottom lip. His shadow moved across the walls, circling Chelsea. "No more running, Rizzoli," the voice said through Ethan's mouth. "Why, Ethan?" "Not Ethan. It's..." He pursed his lips. "I don't actually recall. 100 years up here feels like 1,000 down there. Only name I remember is yours. I made sure of that. Every day the imps ripped my skin from my bones, and when it grew back, I carved your name in anew to make sure I would never forget who put me in that pit." "I never did anything to you," Chelsea whimpered. "Guilt is in the blood. Your blood knows me well." Ethan moved a hand to his bare head, and the shadow tipped his hat. "Time to pay up, Riz." The shotgun man's silhouette peeled away from Ethan to kneel beside Chelsea. His frozen fingers moved the hair away from her face. He traced an oily, black X onto her forehead. He gripped a fistful of her hair to keep her still and turned to Ethan. "Don't miss, boy," he said. Ethan pressed the stock into his shoulder. Tears ran down his cheeks as he lined up the shot. The possessed students and faculty assembled behind him to watch. When the deed was done, they'd be free upon the world. Legions snarled and hissed with anticipation. Ethan shook his head, mumbling apologies as he moved against his will. The barrel of the gun stared at Chelsea like a wide, black eye. Ethan's fingers squeezed the trigger. Nothing happened. He pumped the bad shell to the floor and pumped in a new one. Chelsea swung her foot up to his groin. The gun went off, blasting the shotgun man's shadow. The immaterial spattered the floor. The shotgun man stared at the shadow of his severed arm. A distant memory followed him back from hell. The appendage melted into a greasy puddle as he thought about that night at the farmhouse. The shotgun man looked up to see Chelsea limping away from him, but she was no longer alone. A child held her hand, guiding her to the exit. The ragged stump of the little boy's right arm dripped sunlight onto the floor. Ethan fell to all fours, retching violently. The shotgun man watched the serpent spilling from the teen's mouth. It coiled around itself. Its muscular striped body withered. Its scales flaked from its rotting muscles. One of the possessed fell from the ceiling. Then another. The building trembled. Demonic screams filled the corridors of the high school. Sulphurous fog roiled from the lockers and classrooms. Hell had noticed their absence. "Do something!" the shotgun man barked to the assembled mob. Shadowy, inhuman figures stood over the disoriented students. Their glowing red eyes glared balefully at the shotgun man. The yellow fog swirled around them, dragging them from the hallway in a cacophony of screams and curses. A locker creaked open behind the shotgun man. He glanced one last time at his beloved weapon, and then to Chelsea as she stepped out of the school. The final bell of the day rang. Serpentine wisps of fog reached out of the locker and wrapped around his form. "We had a deal," he whispered. The fog ripped him backwards, and the locker slammed shut. Chelsea squinted against the afternoon sun at the crowd gathered in front of the school. Emergency lights flashed on top of police cars and fire trucks. The warm grip of the child's hand faded, and she looked down to find him missing entirely. The other students, the ones who survived, began staggering out of the doors behind her. Yellow tendrils of fog drifted around their feet and dissipated into the air. The students stumbled around, murmuring amongst themselves. No one remembered what had happened. No one knew why they were filthy or could taste the blood and meat of their classmates still in their mouths. Chelsea sat on the steps and hugged her knees to her chest. She saw the one-armed child walking through the throngs of sobbing parents rushing to their children. At the edge of the lot, his family waited to take him home. A New Beginning by Rob Fields. I have been walking along this road in the heat for hours. Soon I shall reach the village known as Strickfield. To someone like me, this heat feels like heaven. I smile at knowing that this could not have been a better time to have left Ravenhenge. Within a few weeks, it shall be summer. I am observant of the glances that I receive from the mortals passing along in their metal chariots. I suppose that it is uncommon to see a humanoid female walking and wearing a fiery red dress with matching glass heels. Unfortunately, I could not just appear at my intended destination and utilize the closest of the 7 gates of hell, which was in Ravenhenge itself. I am finally crossing into Strickfield and soon reach the university. Mother had me learn of this village and surrounding areas. The dwelling where I must go is on the opposite end of this institution of higher learning. Many of the males attending this university look upon me. I sense their lust, but these foul vermin shall never come to possess me. They are most unworthy of the elder princess of hell. Upon leaving the university grounds, I stop long enough to close my eyes and moan softly. This heat shall be most enjoyable here in the mortal realm. I am confident that the summer season shall become even hotter. I have noticed that many of the mortals that I pass are wet with their own sweat. Such pathetic weaklings. I continue onward to the dwelling that I must reach. I could have arrived sooner, but Father was specific that I am to pass for one of these mortals and not use my unlimited power, unless I absolutely must. This status shall change once I have found the one mortal that I seek. Mother has spoken most highly of Elaine Donnerly during my upbringing. I look forward to finally meeting this mortal female who has earned both Mother's respect and love. She has also advised me of her older brother. Just thinking about Martin Donnerly makes me desire to end him most slowly. Or better still, feed him to my hellhounds back home. However, I am not permitted to harm him without cause. Upon reaching the Donnerly dwelling, I see a metal chariot stopped just outside. There are 5 mortals altogether in the road. 4 of them appear to have someone surrounded and are beating on. "Aileen Donnerly!" I call out. The 4 of them cease kicking Aileen and face me. A rather thin, ugly female glares at me. "Piss off!" The other girl, who looks pouty, points right at me. "4 of us to 1 of you." Aileen sees me and reaches out. "Help me!" I move to these vile girls and seize them both to slam their heads together. Once they fall onto the road, that leaves only the males. The muscular one points at me. "You just messed up bad, bitch." "No, you did," I respond, using mortal speak for the first time in many years. When the 2 males come at me, I grab them by their necks and lift them off the road effortlessly. I toss the muscular one onto the back of their metal chariot, making him shatter the window and land in the back seat. "Let me go!" the other male groans in fear. I would teach these fools a lesson they would not soon forget. But Aileen Donnerly needs me. I turn the male to the 2 females and toss him into them with a single hand. After the male topples the females, he returns to his feet and helps them to theirs. "Let's get out of here," the male yells. Now the thin, ugly female sees the back window. "God damn it, my dad's gonna kill me!" she turns and points at me. This ain't over! Then she points to Aileen. And we damn sure ain't done with you! I no longer regard them, and now regard Aileen. She takes my hand and allows me to assist her to her feet. Are you hurt? I ask. Aileen slowly throws her arms around me and hugs me tightly. Thank you. I slowly return her hug. Soon we regard one another again. Aileen looks me over. To sum up my appearance, you could say that I am a near one-for-one doppelganger of my mother, Bella Tabon. The most noticeable difference between the two of us are that I have even longer blonde hair, which I keep in pigtails that unnaturally extend and hang out past my shoulders, my radiant green eyes to her red ones, and my large bosoms. Aileen regards me strangely. How do you know my name? I am with patience. My family summoned me here to find and protect you. I shall only remain with you if you wish. But who are you? And how do you know me? Aileen stammers. I am Lucibella Tabon, I reveal, and the history that I shall share with you is complicated. Aileen wipes sweat from her forehead with the back of her hand. It's really hot out here. Let's go inside. I allow her to lead me to her dwelling. Once inside, I am amazed at how much cooler it is. I have never experienced anything of this sort at Ravenhenge, and certainly not hell itself. I would rather have remained outside in the heat. Nevertheless, I am not threatened, since the cold cannot harm me. After Aileen drinks some water, she regards me. Would you like something to drink? Not presently, I answer. We shall speak when you are ready. Aileen invites me into her living room. She seats herself in a chair, and I upon the couch. Now we regard one another again. I tell her the history of what was once her timeline with Bella Tabon, my mother. I explain the events of what had happened with Mother and how Hellweaver had deceived her into thinking that she was being offered the Second Chance Compact. As it turned out, someone close to Mother would offer herself in exchange for the final opportunity in the compact. Mother and I both know that this person was Aileen Donnerly. Mother spoke of Aileen's history on how she was part of a revenge plot from those mortals outside. Her older brother Martin had taken advantage of that ugly girl, Courtney Rickman, who had become taken with drink at a gathering. When the alcohol had worn off, Courtney swore revenge upon Martin after accusing him of violating her. In the former timeline, those mortals had come to this dwelling to seek vengeance upon Martin. He was not here, however, but Aileen was. Courtney had her elder brother with her, and Biff Rickman both assaulted and violated Aileen. She became infected with a disease that easily manifested itself within her body due to her weak immune system. Aileen finds this difficult to believe, but Mother said that I must speak the truth. These events have not happened in this new timeline as of yet, Mother was explicit that I not allow you to be assaulted and violated in the way that I have described. Make no mistake, they shall return here tomorrow night, as I have spoken. I raise my finger. I am to remain at your side until tomorrow night has passed. From there, if you wish for me to depart, then I shall, without question. Otherwise, I shall bring you before my great-grandmother. Aileen points to me. So you knew what was happening to me out there. You knew to be there to help me. I did, I admit. Great Grams lives here in Strickfield and has powerful magics to be able to see across space and time, which was why she insisted that I could waste no time in coming here to you. Mother would have come for you herself, but she is currently undertaking a quest. She shall return upon completion of that quest. I raise my finger. If you doubt me, then I shall offer you proof. Your brother shall return home within the next 10 of your minutes. Aileen shakes her head. Martin said he'll be working at Mirren Automotive until 11:30 tonight. He shall return home within 10 minutes, I insist. Aileen sighs and asks me how I could easily handle Courtney Rickman and her friends. I am not of your world, Aileen Donnerly, I answer. Though I must call the mortal realm my home now, my birth realm is hell. Aileen seems frightened of me now, but does not order me to depart. I am here for you, I remind her, whatever you may require of me. Aileen studies me more. Why didn't Bella come herself? She shall come to you, I assure her. While she currently resides here in Strickfield with Great Grams, she also rules hell at Father's side. Again, she is undertaking a quest, which is why my family in Strickfield summoned me. The choice is yours. Once tomorrow's danger has passed, you may keep me here at your side or send me back to hell. Aileen remembers. You said you would do whatever I asked? Yes, my unlimited power is yours to command. Whatever you may ask of me, it shall be done. Mother wishes for you to be my guide here in the mortal realm. She said that you could be trusted to keep me honest. Just then, the back door opens. Martin Donnerly enters and regards the two of us. The fool's eyes open wide upon beholding me. Can I help you? His eyes move from my face to my bosoms repeatedly. His emotions convey his longing for me to become the latest in his string of whores. I am enraged and stand to engage him as he approaches me. Upon his reaching, I snatch his throat and slam him against a nearby wall. Dare to lay your hands upon me, mortal vermin, and I shall. No! Aileen cries as she takes hold of my free hand. When I regard her, she explains herself. Please, Lucabella, don't hurt Martin. I can't stand him, but he's the only family I have. I release Martin. Your sister still cares for you, to a degree. This is why you yet live. Never attempt to lay hold of me again. Martin regards Aileen as she explains who I am and why I am here. Now he displays a more dominant expression. I don't care what this little snippet says. You're not staying here. Aileen tightens her fists. But she will, Martin. Lucibella's here for me. She tells him about those mortals who attacked her prior to my arrival. You and your male kind are indeed fools, Martin, I add. You only think with your loins, never your brain. Was Courtney Rickman's flesh worth those fools attacking your sister? Martin points to me. Don't you talk to me like that. Aileen becomes upset. She's right, Martin. I know you've hated taking care of me after Mom and Dad were killed. I never cared who you were with, sexually or whatever. But seriously, you took full advantage of Courtney Rickman when she was drunk off her ass, and I've got to pay for it. I move in between them. It matters not, Aileen. What matters is that I am here now, and no harm shall come to you. Again, my infinite power is yours to command. Aileen addresses Martin again. I've tried to play the loving sister and be there for you, but I won't pay the price because you just can't keep it in your pants. She regards me now. Let's go upstairs. I want you to come to school with me tomorrow. As you wish, I return. I accompany Aileen to her bedchamber, where she motions for me to sit upon a chair at her desk. Once she is seated upon her bed, we converse. Aileen wishes for me to continue accompanying her until the threat has ended. Mortal vermin like Martin is one among multiple reasons why I bear such hatred for males. The next morning, I enter Strickfield High School with Aileen. She could only educate me in so many details about being a high school student. Of course, I could not wear the outfit that I wore to the mortal realm. Aileen has provided me with one of her cheerleading uniforms. Because of my large bosoms, the jersey causes my midriff to become fully exposed, assuring much distraction to foolish males. Aileen brings me into the school leader's office, where I am to stand before Matthew Van Diest. The school leader regards Aileen as he points to me. Last time I checked, Miss Donnerly, this girl is not on the cheerleading squad. Now he regards me. You're not even a student here, so remove that cheerleading uniform and put some other clothes on. Normally, I would have enslaved him in hell for the way he has spoken to me. However, he knows not who I truly am, so I shall overlook this and resort to mischief. I give him a wicked smile. As you command, Matthew. The school leader gasps when I remove the top and throw it away. The other females working with him either gasp or speak of their god. I am ready to remove the skirt when Aileen is quick to stop me. No, Lucy, she shrieks. Cover those up, quick! I obey Aileen and cover my bosoms with my hands. I allow these fools to behold them again as I accept the top from Aileen and reapply it. The school leader gives me an expression that says he wishes to expel me. Instead, he groans and moves to gather papers. I would require Aileen's assistance in writing the needed information upon the papers. Fortunately, I listened to Mother when she insisted that I learn mortal speech, reading, and writing. To my irony, Matthew Van Diest has accepted me as a new student at Strickfield High School, in spite of my blatant mischief. "Lucy, why did you do that?" Aileen demands upon us leaving the office. "Did you not inform me in your bedchamber that your school leader greatly regards these mortal females' bosoms?" I respond. Aileen sighs. "You really don't know how things work here, do you?" I do understand the structures here in Strickfield, as well as surrounding cities and villages. I have not existed in the mortal realm long enough to know its ways. Have I dishonored you? Aileen sighs again, then smiles a little. I don't think the office staff was expecting what you did. I mean, Van Diest did enroll you. She puts her hand upon my shoulder. It'll be okay, Lucy. When we get to class, let me do the talking, at least for now. I stop her and raise an eyebrow. Lucy? I can call you Lucibella. She corrects herself. It was just easier to call you Lucy. We regard each other for a brief time. Then I nod once. You may call me Lucy. As we walk the hallways, many males regard me with lust. I can feel that they wish to lie with me. These underlings shall most certainly die trying. At lunch period, Aileen would later ask me about my hatred for males, my father being the one exception. Here is that history. Mother once brought me into the mortal realm herself. I told my parents that I desired to remain in hell and did not wish to intermingle with mortals. Mother insisted that I would have to enter the mortal realm eventually, especially if I was to become a ruler of hell one day. Father took her side and suggested that Mother bring me here at once. I trusted Mother, and I listened to her lessons there. In truth, I am certain that I shall come to appreciate the mortal realm in regards to its beauty and wonders. As for its people, there leaves much to be desired. Mother and I were walking across a college campus in the magnificent shore city. After Mother had shown me the view of the top of the tallest building there, we returned to the concrete surface and continued our journey. In time, we heard a mortal crying for help. Mother and I investigated and regarded 4 mortal males, college boys, looking to overpower a single female, for the purpose of forcing sex from her. Since she would not concede it, she would be violated. If there was one thing that truly angered Father, it was when mortal males felt that they needed to make sure their female counterparts knew their place here. As far as males were concerned, females were never to have wills of their own. Father told me that females were created to be at the sides of males and not subservient to them. I think this was one of the many reasons why Mother ultimately came to love Father. He regarded her as his equal, his queen, but very few mortal males would ever regard females as such. Because of Father's teachings, I became disgusted with the concept of rape. Mother attempted to stop me, but I was too enraged to hear her, and unknowingly backhanded her. She flew into a nearby wall, and was dazed. In my rage, I would ultimately break and tear those males apart, killing them. I relished being soaked in their blood when I was finished. The female that I had saved was most frightened and felt that I would also destroy her. Mother had revived and came in between us. She had used her glam to make the girl forget ever seeing what I had done. Mother brought me back to hell and explained to Father about what I had done. Father did not approve and ruled that I would never return to the mortal realm again. Mother would have her say, however, and proposed a counteroffer to allow me to be able to return to the mortal realm with certain conditions. Father reconsidered his ruling and specifically stated that I was never again to kill any living beings in the mortal realm unless it was a matter of dire importance. That day would come when Father explained why Mother required me to return to the mortal realm. I would obey and leave hell to seek out Aileen Donnerly. To this day, my hatred for mortal males has never diminished. I shall never become bound by marriage or become subservient to a mortal male, nor surrender my body or my heart. Mortal males may look upon me, but they shall never possess the elder princess of hell. That evening, Aileen and I are returning home from cheerleading practice. The boys' basketball team would have a game the next day, and we would be required to cheer for them. How did I come to be a member of this squad? After that incident in the principal's office, Matthew Van Diest turned me over to Sandra Temple, who was also in the office. This woman informed me that there was an opening on the cheerleading squad and offered it to me. "You've certainly got a unique look to you," Temple had complimented. "Whether or not you remain on the squad will depend on how fast you can adapt." I laughed scornfully at her. "Oh, I shall adapt. I believe that I have secured my position on the squad with how easily I have adapted to the cheerleaders' configurations, including their pyramid. I believe that Sandra Temple was most impressed because she has not released me from the squad as of yet. Speaking of the squad, I have been in Aileen Donnerly's company for a day's time, and I have already come to care about her a great deal. I feel that our bond shall strengthen further with time. As we turn onto the street where Aileen's dwelling is, I sense a metal chariot coming at us most swiftly. I glance over my shoulder and see that it is the same metal chariot from the day before. Those mortals kept their distance during school and have waited until now to return, as I had foretold to Aileen the day before. "Lucy!" Aileen shrieks upon seeing that metal chariot will easily strike us. Mother and Father entrusted me to protect Aileen Donnerly. I shall not fail in my second journey here in the mortal realm. I seize Aileen to me and stand firm as the metal chariot impacts with my back. I remain where I stand, still holding Aileen to me. The chariot, however, shall require much attention. The front has a rounded crescent from the impact with my back, as though the chariot had collided with a large tree to become damaged itself, but not harm the tree in any way. Aileen is most surprised at what has transpired. I release her and turn my attention to her enemies, who are now my enemies. The four mortals are shaken, yet they are not harmed because of their protective restraints. The four of them exit the damaged chariot. The driver, Courtney Rickman, points at me. "You are so dead, both of you." I laugh with scorn. "Make no mistake, you shall never harm Aileen Donnerly again after this day." I feel Aileen's hands grab one of mine. "Don't kill them, Lucy." "I shall not," I promise her. Mother and father would be most angry with me again, but now I consider how Aileen would feel, and I do not wish to know negativity from her. However, I shall make these mortal fools understand what it means to incur my wrath. The foolish children make the mistake of looking into my eyes as they glow with the brightness of hellfire. To begin, I take hold of the male known as Jason Stamen and set him ablaze. Truly, he has never tasted the very flames of hell. As he feels his body, his very soul burn at my touch, I release him. He tries to flee, but the flames shall remain bound to him. His guilt and sin shall continue to feed the flames indefinitely. I look upon the other male, Brad Order, and stare deep into his eyes. He screams only for a moment before he realizes that he can no longer do so, as I command forces that literally grind his very bones into ashes from within his own flesh, while retaining his life force. Amanda Dawson turns to flee, but I appear before her. She shrieks with fright when I take hold of her. Now she moans in anguish when she feels herself growing old, to the point where she is so frail that a mere burst of a simple wind would cause her to fall over. Her fate shall be that her young soul be forever imprisoned within her frail body as her living tomb. Finally, I turn my attention to Courtney Rickman. She has such fear and anguish upon her face after seeing what I have done to her friends. She now begs the elder princess of hell for her very life. I am with amusement and laugh scornfully once more as I behold her. "You sought to end the life of Aileen Donnerly," I point to her. "Were you not the one who became taken with drink? Why do you mortals always push the blame onto others? Aileen did nothing to you, yet you would harm Aileen simply to harm the man that took advantage of you. You attack Martin Donnerly's younger sister out of cowardice, as you sought to do the day before. Now you shall face punishment for your actions. Since you seem to enjoy the pleasures of the flesh so much, I shall turn your own against you." When Courtney gazes into my eyes, her body becomes afflicted with the very disease that Aileen had become infected with in Mother's former timeline, on a much more advanced level. Courtney falls to her side with sweat, dark bruises, and large boils from her fever. She raises her arm to me. "Please." I ignore her pleas and say to the fools, "This is my final judgment." I stand and watch as their souls writhe in what would become their eternal torment. But remember, I am forbidden to claim the lives of mortals unless I should be presented with no other alternative. The fools are suddenly released from their trances. When they gaze into my eyes, I merely planted my realities for them within their own minds. Think of it as a greatly enhanced form of your technology, known as virtual reality. The fools literally experienced the fates that I would have granted them if I were without restraint, complete with the feelings of those experiences. However, I never harmed them in any way. "Let's get out of here!" Courtney screams in terror. I laugh when they flee for their lives. If I truly wish to find them, it will not be difficult. After all, how would you even escape from the elder princess of hell herself? Aileen approaches me. "Lucy, what about their car?" I give her a gentle smile. "Observe. I place my hands upon the car, as I now understand it to be named, and restore it to as it was, including the back window that was shattered the day before. The 4 mortal children shall be believed for fools should they speak of the events that they believe they have experienced. With all as it was, I turn to Aileen. We shall go another way. Great Grams wishes to speak to you. Aileen trusts in me enough to accompany me to the dwelling where Great Grams and Mother reside. When the 2 of us are before the front door, it opens to reveal Anathea Tabon. Great Grams has many years, but her appearance is that of a mortal woman of 30. The elder matriarch of the Tabon family is a vampire. After being invited inside, Great Grams and I embrace one another. Then she regards me. "Thank you for bringing Aileen Donnerly, Lucibella." Now she turns to face my friend. "I suspect you want answers." Aileen sighs. "I just don't understand why I'm suddenly being protected by Lucy." She explains the events from the day before, when I first came upon her. "You shall have your answers, child," Great Grams promises. Aileen listens as Great Grams speaks in our native Tabon language. When she finishes, she caresses the side of Aileen's temple before finishing with our word for remember. Aileen gasps and looks around quickly. What? "I've restored your memories from Bella's former timeline, prior to her accepting the Second Chance Compact," Great Grams informs her. "Remember, Aileen Donnerly." Aileen regards me now. "Wow, I know you're not Belle's, but you look so much like her, Lucy." Then she is saddened. I really screwed things up. Great Grams gives Aileen her grandmotherly smile. "Perhaps it is we who should be thanking you, Aileen. Though we know why you bargained with Hellweaver, I have seen all in my mediums and know you did it for my granddaughter. Between you and Bella, your actions are the reason the Tabon family continues to live and grow. The only downside is that there were likely negative effects resulting from Bella's rewriting her history, and you attempting to rewrite yours to save her. But as for my great-granddaughter here and myself, we exist now and must accept that we do." I fold my arms in front of me. "You speak as if we are accursed, Great Grams. I originally died a long time ago, Lucibella. and you and your siblings never existed before Hellweaver was able to escape perdition. She puts her hand on my forearm. Nevertheless, we must do what we can to prevent Hellweaver from conquering the multiverse, and it shall take as many allies as we can gather to even have the slightest chance of stopping her. I want to help too, Aileen offers. I watch as Great Grams uses her magics to examine Aileen. You no longer carry the disease which threatened your life in your former timeline. However, you still remain altered as a result of that vampire bite you sustained from an alternate universe. Aileen is with optimism now. Then I don't have to stay with Martin anymore. I can go my own way. I have plenty of room here, Great Grams informs us. In fact, both of you shall reside here. We can determine our next course of action while Bella is away on her quest. I unfold my arms as Aileen and I behold one another. It would seem that you and I shall become even closer now, I say. Aileen and I embrace as true friends. I suppose that Great Grams is correct. We would not exist in this time, or at all, had time itself not been altered. In the meantime, it seems that the elder princess of Hell must serve as a protector in the vast space that is the mortal realm. I know that I must perfect my mortal speak while I reside here. In time I shall be able to blend in perfectly among the mortals, with Aileen Donnerly as my new friend and my guide. I am feeling that I do not wish to return to Hell so soon. Perhaps I shall learn to appreciate the mortal realm after all.
Breaking the Seal by Douglas Waltz. The sharp pain in my head was what woke me from my unconscious state. My head felt like thin glass ready to break without warning. Drinking always did that to me. The sudden urge to use the bathroom is what convinced me to actually leave the warmth of my bed. I ignored the protests of my aching head and realized I had fallen asleep with my pants on. A fuzzy memory led me to believe that there should have been someone else in bed with me. The state of the blankets on the far side of the bed confirmed this, but there was no one there. I shrugged and staggered down the hallway to the bathroom. I didn't even try to unzip my pants. I unzipped them and dropped them to the cool tile floor. My bladder protested at the delay, and I lifted the lid to let loose the contents of said bladder, filled with the previous night's drinking. The urine erupted from me with a force I had never seen before. I instantly grabbed my penis as it started to travel up, splashing the entire lid and the back of the toilet. I was sure it would have hit the ceiling if I hadn't interfered by aiming it back in the bowl. The water in the bowl churned and frothed from the sheer velocity of the stream of urine coming from me. To be honest, I had never experienced a piss like this before. Usually there is the initial relaxation upon release, but now it was more of a sense of panic. It was then I realized two things. The bowl of the toilet was filling rapidly, and my stream of urine had not decreased in the slightest. Still churning the water like an outboard motor, I flushed the toilet and continued to urinate. The flushing barely stayed ahead of what was coming out of me. It already felt like I had been there longer than was normal. Looking down, I noticed something on my chest. What the hell was on my chest? I turned the top half of me towards the bathroom mirror over the sink and nearly jumped out of my skin. There was a bloody pentagram on my chest. Why was there a bloody pentagram on my chest? I tentatively touched it and was mildly surprised it didn't hurt. I snapped out of the examination of this new discovery to flush the toilet again before it overflowed. My finger had what looked like blood on it, but I figured it wasn't mine. That led to a whole new list of questions as the urine continued to flow with the same velocity as it had when it started. The uppermost in my mind would be, whose blood was on my chest in the form of a pentagram? Then my phone rang. I jumped from the sudden noise and urine splashed the wall behind the toilet. I had apparently left my phone in my pants pocket when I fell asleep. How much did I have to drink last night? I wondered as I tried to figure out a plan to retrieve my phone from my pants. First, I flushed again. When I pushed down the handle for at least what I thought was the fourth or fifth time, it hit me. I had just fallen into a routine where flushing the toilet repeatedly was part of my life now. My skin crawled with panic as I reached out for the leg of my pants and dragged it closer to me. I thought I could just force my Kegel muscles to stop the flow of piss long enough to reach down and grab my pants. That was a horrible idea. The attempt was met by a lancing, white-hot pain in my penis, and it accomplished absolutely nothing. The urine continued to flow, and I screamed from the agony. My head erupted in sweat, and I saw little black dots swimming in my field of vision. I knew I couldn't pass out. I was absolutely positive that even unconscious, I would continue to piss, filling the room in no time. I was in a ground floor apartment, so the piss would have nowhere to go. I took some deep breaths and relaxed and continued to drag the pants closer. The ringing had stopped, but now that I knew my phone was in the room, I had a lifeline to the outside world. But there was no way I was going to be able to pick up the pants and emerge unscathed. I glanced over my shoulder at the bathtub and knew what was going to happen. It was my only option. I continued to hold my penis and squatted, grabbing my pants, and took the 3 steps to the bathtub and hopped in. I pulled the curtain to contain the flow and held my pants away from the stream. I realized that I would need both hands to get the phone out of my jeans. I took another deep breath, released my cock from my hand, and went for it. 5 seconds later, I had my phone in my right hand, my penis back in my left hand, and there was piss in my hair. The call had come from my friend Nate. I checked the message he left, and it answered more than a few questions. Apparently, at my buddy Nate's house, we had been slamming shots and beer like they were water. When I'm drunk, I've been told that I become aggressively horny. I had left with a girl he called Twitch the Witch. He was checking up on me. I called him back and asked him about the evening. I also found out the reason for the odd name for my choice of female companionship for that night. She was always showing up at parties and tweaking out on meth. Usually she drank a lot, caused a scene, and that was the end of it. But my horny vision had selected her for my advances, and we'd left together. Nate also mentioned that she was a practicing witch. When he asked if I was next to a stream or something, I just ignored it and asked if he had her number. Nate has everybody's number. She answered on the first ring. I could hear the sneer in her voice when she asked how my morning piss went, and I realized my drunken personality had taken things way too far. After much pleading and begging, she felt that I had been punished enough. I gave her my address, and she said she had 2 requirements for removing the curse. 1, she had something else to do, and it would be an hour. 2, to complete my utter humiliation, I would have to meet her outside. I agreed to the terms because I didn't see any other way out of an impossible situation. But at the same time, My alcohol-riddled brain saw a way to decrease my utter humiliation. I used my delivery app on my phone to order a pack of super absorbent adult diapers and a pair of oversized sweatpants. I even left a huge tip to make sure they were left by my doorstep. The delivery got there with 10 minutes to spare before Twitch had scheduled to arrive. Plenty of time. I balled up my jeans, held them against my penis, and ran for the front door. I flung it open, grabbed the bag, and made a dash back to the bathroom. The jeans were already soaked, but the stream was blocked sufficiently that there wasn't piss everywhere. I dropped the bag on the sink and stood in the bathtub while I familiarized myself with how the diapers worked. It was a pack of 20, but I was only going to need about 4 to pull this off. I was interrupted by a text from Twitch telling me she was parking her car and on her way to my apartment. I strapped on the first diaper and layered it with 4 more. Then I pulled on the sweatpants. I was glad they were black. Hides the piss better. That made me laugh for some reason. I stuffed 2 more down the front of my pants and headed for the door. Opening the door, I saw Twitch across the street. At least, I assumed it was her. She was the only person dressed in black goth clothes with a head of shocking green hair. An evil smile crossed her face when we made eye contact, and she stepped off the curb to cross the street. The landscaping truck never saw her. I live on a main road with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour, and she bounced off the front grille of that truck and was sucked under the vehicle. The loudest, sickening crunch filled the air, followed immediately by the screeching of the truck's brakes. Twitch lay mangled on the road, her eyes wide open and staring at me. Blood and gray matter trickled down her ruined face. The diapers had lost the battle, and twin jets of piss shot down both my legs, onto the sidewalk, and into the street. I knew the urine would reach Twitch, and I started to laugh. The end.
Satan's Shotgun by Daniel Wilder. I had a revelation come New Year's Eve of 1899. Jesus ain't nothing. I reckon I could resurrect myself like a right heavyweight champion. Long as my boy's bones held out, that is. But admittedly, I couldn't hold a candle to that water to rot gut routine, and I sure as fuck couldn't walk on water, and there sure as shit ain't any virgins in my vicinity. I guess I truly meant that coming back from the dead wasn't any great shakes. What brought me to that bitto revelation were the events of nearly 12 years prior. 1887, if you can cipher. The night Gideon Pharaoh's Nightmare Zodiac Death Gang came a-knockin'. And that's exactly as those hocus-pocus braggarts build themselves, too. Nightmare Zodiac Death Gang should have spent more time practicing with pistols than coming up with candy-ass gang titles. But I digress. You see, I was a simple man then, farming, maybe a bit of trapping, not to mention interpreting for the local tribes and those they cottoned to trade with. It wasn't the high life, but it was good enough for me, Elizabeth, and our boy Lazarus. That name was a bit of a on-the-nose serendipity that the fates served up to us by and the by. Let me tell you true, and I sure as hell wasn't amused. 'Tweren't 18 months after our boy's birth that the sack-headed sidewinder Gideon and his posse arrived on our doorstep and ended his life. And his mama's. But as was their folly, they never checked if my heart had stopped. And to be fair, I never asked them why they were so sore with me and mine. So yeah, mistakes were made all around on that day. So once their devilish deeds were done, they headed off into the still night with nary a thought of the hell they had borne that day. And still my heart continued to beat like a native drum. A doom dirge banging away to attract any midnight motherfucker within 666 yards. And to track, it surely did. The shaman entered what remained of our home casual as can be. The fully bandaged man he led on a leash followed, seemingly devoid of thought, as well as grace. He slinked his way over to me like a mongoose, all sinew and glide, the bones around his waist clanking together like the gnashing teeth of some desert devil risen from an unholy hell, ready to feast. As my eyes strained to focus, I saw that bastard light a fire of green flame. A flame he used to rend the prone form of my boy to ashes and bone in as much time as it takes to tell. I admit the darkness took me then, as I was a powerful sight weaker in constitution than I am now. Though I have a dread vision of that bandaged fella placing a lipless mouth over my own and blowing a dust that reeked to high hell of rot deep into my lungs that made them feel as if they was filled with the fire of old Scratch himself. I came to walking along a trail deep in the nearby Adirondacks, a foul-scented wrapping from the shaman's friend tied tightly around my eyes. While you may get to thinking that would seriously impede my journey, the exact opposite held true. I could sense where I was going and just where the first of those I sought were hunkered down. So onward I trekked, my boy's bones rattling in the leather sack strapped to my left shoulder. That same rattle let any man or beast in my path know that I surely was not to be fucked with as I began my stride along revenge's rough road. I walked those wicked woods until the sun fell low and the sky was streaked in hues of lavender and rose, and it was then I came upon the cabin, on New Year's Eve, painted as it were in two differing colors, sky blue and soft pink, the abode of Gemini, 2 doses of poison in 1 pill. The smoke that poured from the chimney let me know those that needed correcting were home sweet home. I didn't stand on formality. The door exploded inward from the impact of my left shit kicker, splinters spreading out like buckshot acting as my calling card. It took me a fraction of a second to realize no one was visible in the room, magic eyewear or no, but I could smell them just fine. Naturally, they didn't surprise me none when they exploded from the shadows of the cabin ceiling. However, the fact that they could move together like a great spider in their conjoined state definitely raised an eyebrow. I unloaded my rifle with a thunderous roar. The shot tore a nice chunk of whatever the lady side of this thing was called, but she wasn't going down by a long shot. Before I knew it, the male side of the equation had maneuvered himself in such a way that he both knocked me to the ground and managed to wrap the fleshy band that kept these two eternally bound around my neck. That same bit of flesh began flexing and throbbing until I couldn't draw a breath, the various veins and sinew contained under that warm sleeve pulsing like a bag of snakes. Things began swirling and growing ever darker. That's when I died, for the first time. The shaman appeared shortly thereafter, though my enemies never noticed. Although, if they did, I wager they'd have been confused as all get out. See, that fella simply strolled in, leaned low, and whispered in my ear. "Use a bone?" I didn't quite gather what he was on about, but it seemed like a question I should answer in the affirmative. He reached into my rucksack, pulled out one of the 12 bones of my boy that clattered inside, and shoved that rune-covered ivory femur right in my mouth. It dissolved on contact with my tongue, and I was back in business. I sat up, puked, and roared at my killers who had now sat down to a nice warm meal after their deed was done. What I did next would become a bit of a legend. See, I grabbed the steak knife out of the hand of the twin closest to me, who honestly didn't even resist, probably the shock of a corpse interrupting his din-din. Anyway, I took that blade and commenced to slice that ribbon that held them together like a rabid wolf. But then I had a pang of conscience. These two had been together since day one, so it'd be a shame to take that away from them. Fortunately, I learned to sew at a tender age. I can only imagine the look on Gideon's face when he saw one or two, not sure how they counted themselves. Anyway, saw a member of his posse fixed mouth to crotch of their opposite number like those yin-yang symbols the Chinese fellas out west were so fond of. And imagine it would have to be, as once my work was done, I sunk into the earth outside the Gemini's doorstep, and there I slept for a full year. And so it went. At the very end of each and every year, I'd rise up and put a murder on one of those psychos. Pisces, hard to breathe with concrete in your gills. Taurus. Let's just say he wasn't just a bull from the shoulders up, but that would be his undoing when I rammed that tallywhacker straight down his throat. Aries, Leo, Cancer, Sagittarius, Virgo, Libra, Capricorn, Aquarius, dead, 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 and double dead. Don't ask. Year after year I fought, and year after year I lost a little bit more of my boy. Piece by piece. Finally, I came to Scorpio. And if you think the other menagerie made for a one-of-a-kind corpse gallery, I can assure you all that that final member of that gang, minus their ringmaster, but I'll get to his arcane ass in a tick. See, after the decade and change of carnival exhibits I'd tussled with, I wouldn't blame you none if you wagered Scorpio would be some kind of insect man, but it wasn't. Hell, it wasn't even a man. As you could guess from the hiring of those darling siblings I jawed about earlier, Gideon didn't give a single shit if those that worked for him were men or women, a real rarity as far as evil posses went in the late 1800s. Of course, half those motherfuckers would be a right challenge to even classify as human. When I sauntered up to that gypsy wagon lady Scorpio called home, I could just tell I was in for a hell of a time. The scent of burning herbs filled the air, and the roaring flame burning brightly beside the gaudy wagon was doing a solid job of roasting a large pheasant. I hunkered down by the fire. It always feels good to warm my hands after pointing my boots toward the sky for 12 months. The lavender and crimson curtains that covered the entrance to the wagon parted, and she appeared, a raven-haired beauty with eyes as cruel and cold then as a whole nest of vipers could possess. I told Gideon doing your wife and boy was a grave mistake. Well, it's a mistake that will surely put you in your grave, missy. She laughed, and I had to admit it was an unbelievably delicate thing. If that is to be my fate, there is little I can do to change it. I spit at her feet. Yup. Won't you come inside a moment? It's your funeral, you can have it any way you want. I entered the wagon and beheld the interior, which contained nothing save for an opulent bed. I sat down and waited for the show to start. She slid into the bed beside me, pushed me down, and started to rub up against me all feline-like. I grabbed her hair, tugged it hard, and whispered the most romantic thing I could think of into her ear. This is for Lisbeth. I drove the blade of the hunting knife through the back of her head before she could even realize I had pulled it from my left boot. She made that weird gargle whistling exhale thing that you never really got used to. Then the light in those big brown eyes went dim. Should have started with this one. I managed to remove my knife from her skull and kick her ass right out of the wagon in a near seamless movement. I heard her hit the ground and then... splash? Her skin flew through the curtains and collided with the far wall of the wagon with a sickening sound akin to pig innards being thrown at a whorehouse. Ah, here we go, I said as the giant scorpion clickety-clacked through the entryway. The odd thing about this here scorpion is it had a great set of breasts and a tail equipped with a rather ornery-looking cock where the poisonous sting should have rested. I'm going to fuck you one way or another, lover, the beast spat from a mouth full of spear-like teeth and bad intentions. Get in line, sister. I drew my iron and unloaded on that nightmare with barrel ablazing. That damn tail whipped at me again and again as Scorpio's face looked like a vat of prize-winning chili, and to my horror, the loads that appended shot were some sort of vile acid. While the walls of the wagon began to dissolve, the bitch stopped her bucking. Well, fuck me silly. I didn't die this go-around. I wonder if I'll still take a dirt nap. Yep, I said, as I folded into the cold earth. For the first time in years, I dreamed. I saw my family. The unspeakable terror life had become, the soul-crushing scream into the abyss I'd make year after year as I was reborn to put down one monster after another. And I saw that burlap-headed bastard that had made this all so. And I saw children. Unfamiliar children with their faces tinted a glowing blue, the exact same hue of which I had never seen the like of before. Guess what day it is? That's right, the day I end the life of that masked son of a bitch and finally rest in peace. That's the theory anyway. The morning of New Year's Eve, 1899. I had that Jesus thought I mentioned at the start of this yarn, and I found myself wandering the streets of old Manhattan town, beastly bandages in place. Everything was cold gray, until I got that unholy vision that Gideon was well and truly a man about town, though he wore a false human face over his rough mask. I followed him around a pace, but he seemed to make stops at random, and although he made no indication that he knew I was there, I knew damn well he did. Finally, he got the drop on me after a rather well-executed disappearing act in the Bowery. "Let's retire to my residence and talk this through, eh, dead man?" he purred. "Yup," I answered. We entered the luxurious townhouse Gideon called home. "Please relax," Gideon said, gesturing to an array of sofas and chairs that festooned his abode. I took a load off on a nearby Persian rug. That furniture was doubtless cursed and would spell my doom if I dare put my ass upon it. "Are you a gambling man?" he asked. "Not by nature, no." "I am, and if I had to play my hand, I would wager you want to know why I chose you and your kin to slaughter." "The thought had crossed my mind a time or two, if I'm to be honest," I answered true. "I had heard that if you do someone a cosmic-level injustice, like a random killing for instance, then powerful magic is revealed to those willing to travel a dark path." "You heard rightly." He gestured toward my rucksack. "The magic?" "My son." "Your son became the rarest of magics? You should be kissing my feet for this gift." "I see it a tad different." "I wager you do. Nevertheless, my theory was correct." "Nevertheless, you should have listened to your pet bug." "Scorpio? She was always the most in tune of my menagerie." "Was" is the operative word. "I care little that you killed any of those sideshow attractions." "You're all heart." "No, I'm all business." "How so?" I queried. "Let's say you give me that last bone in your sack, and I let you walk out of here and live a long and happy life." "Let's say I do. What does that give me? An eternity without those I love? Those you took from me?" "True, but a life is a life." I thought on this a spell, and I had me a revelation. Hold on, you'll see. "Fine. You want the bone? Here it is." I removed my son's skull from the sack and held it up for that snake to see. "Glorious. Please, let me hold it." The shaman spoke into my ear for the last time. I nodded. I tossed my boy's skull to Gideon, and as that bone grew ever closer, I drew my pistol and fired. The skull exploded when the bullet hit the bone. The shaman laughed. His Egyptian pal laughed. I laughed. Gideon, however, did most assuredly not laugh. The shards of the skull became missiles and pierced Gideon's mask in 100 razor-sharp volleys. He did that gargle thing and fell like a sack of potatoes. "That's that, then," I said. I waited for some sort of cosmic redemption. Would I stand before my family once more? Would I finally be able to rest? A glowing letter A appeared in the sky. A glowing S followed it. And another S. Ass. Real cute, I thought, as I finally succumbed to the darkness. Brent laughed. "Ass. Classic." "Yeah, man, this game is so easy if you have enough quarters," Todd said. "I've beaten it like 100 times. The duo walked away from the cabinet as the attract screen of Satan's shotgun called out to the next player, and Elizabeth and Lazarus died anew.
Well, my spookies, if the Ides of March had a motto, it would probably be, "Congratulations, you made a choice," and then immediately, "Here are your consequences." Because tonight we learned a few important life lessons, Like, if a place feels safe, that's usually when the floor decides to open up. If someone offers you a fresh start, maybe ask what the interest rate is. If you're about to mess around with something that can be described as a seal, a ritual, or ancient, maybe just pass on that one. And if you see a suspicious symbol anywhere near a bathroom, the correct response is not gross. It's, I'm moving to another state tonight. Also, the Ides of March remains undefeated in its ability to turn a bad night into a legend. One minute you're laughing with your friends, the next minute you're trying to explain to emergency services why your problem is technically supernatural, but also deeply embarrassing. Really, the worst combo there is: terror and shame. Or maybe it's two great tastes that taste great together. So make sure to mind your own business, keep your doors locked, and if you hear a whisper of power being promised, do what any reasonable person would do. Pretend you didn't hear it and go back to scrolling on your phone. I hope you'll join me next week for the final installment of our Ides of March collection. Things are gonna get a lot worse before they get better. Until then, sleep tight. And if you wake up at 3 a.m. on the dot, don't check the mirror because, well, that's how it wins. See you next time.